supposed to meet to explore classic Black Ops 1 maps together. Oh, there you are. How'd you get up there? No, you know what? Stay there. I'll come to you. There you are. You know what? I think I can make that jump. Give me a second here. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, there we go. Not so bad. When I couldn't find you, I thought maybe I mixed up the dates or you forgot or something. But it's great to see you again. So if you're ready to go, I'll go ahead and pick you up. And we can get to exploring these maps. What do you say? Alright, here we go. Okay, so that's my little intro skit here. Of course, we are in 2010's Call of Duty Black Ops 1. Well, the one is not there, it was just Black Ops, right? We are on the multiplayer map, Havana, which is the capital of Cuba. And of course, the plot line of Black Ops 1 being set during the Cold War, the global tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union, between capitalism and communism. Cuba was a significant element in that global conflict, and the events of Black Ops 1 do visit Cuba. The game actually starts with the Bay of Pigs invasion, which was a failed invasion of Cuba in 1961 to overturn the government. It was backed by the United States, but the invasion force itself was composed of ex-Cuban citizens or Cuban expats, whatever, and it did not work out, so it was planned during the Eisenhower administration, I believe, and then John F. Kennedy pulled the trigger on it. But here we are in a nice, fancy hotel. The year, I assume, is 1961. And as this is Havana, a relatively nice city, you know, there's some nice luxuries here, and we have a little rotary phone booth over here, a little cubby in the wall. large cash register and a very 60s clock here. Yeah, I used to love playing with that rotary phone as a kid. Not calling anybody, but just, turning the little rotary segment with your finger, and then it would spin back and go click, 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 click. Then you'd put your finger in a different one and, rotate it around, and it would spin back. I did quite enjoy those as a kid. Wonder if, I was about to say, I wonder if it's about as, forgotten as like a floppy disk, I wonder if kids now, I'm sure most kids don't know what a floppy disk is, but then it occurred to me that I think rotary phones are much more iconic in media and, cartoons and so on. You're much more likely to see something like a rotary phone than a floppy disk in your media diet. We can step out of the hotel here and we see some graffiti on the wall, some art of Fidel Castro. Fidel Castro, of course, is the leader of Cuba, and whom the CIA attempted to assassinate numerous times, which you play a part in the game. This is a nice avenue here. Things seem a little chaotic and abandoned at the moment. I am assuming that this map is set, during the chaos of the Bay of Pigs, but I don't know for sure. Maybe during the Cuban Revolution, I don't know. We have some nice tall buildings off there in the distance, and the skybox. Military truck in the road. Talking about the rotary phones and what young people know about. It's just occurring to me, do people even have home phones at all? Or is it all cell phones nowadays? When I was a kid, my mom, all kids, they needed to know their home phone number, right? We have a sign here outside the hotel. CDR, Comité de Defensa de la Revolución. And some nice artwork. I actually quite like that. Sort of abstract art of a man in a hat, I think, holding a machete, maybe, with the Cuban flag kind of underneath him. But yeah, my mom drilled cell phone number. But yeah, I wonder if anybody really uses home phones anymore. El Bolivar, El Bolivar. Another hotel, it would seem. I'm a little out of touch with whatever is going on in kids' lives, young people's lives. In a few more years, I will start to reconnect a bit as my friends' children age up, but right now they're all a little too young to give me insight into the up-and-coming generation's experience. We have some beer cans here. Oh, they read Treyarch, which is of course the developer of this game, Treyarch. So a little reference there, a little Easter egg, little Easter egg. Let's see what we have. Perhaps vodka. What does this say? The V, or what is it? There's like very special, right? It's a grading system special, very special. For is that tequila? Anyways, I'm not a big drinker. I do drink, but sometimes I go months without drinking. We have a large mural on the face of this building here, showing some very happy-looking Cuban citizens overlooked by Fidel and I suppose Raul Castro. Pelasco. Can't quite read that sign. San Rafael, is that what that says? Yeah, I really just drink at the occasional social event with friends now. You reach a certain age, and I think some people just kind of move on from it. The downsides start to outweigh the positives, and that's definitely the case for me. I do not recuperate in a way that makes drinking worth it very much for me. Even in college, I wasn't the biggest drinker. I mean, it was college, and so I did overdrink quite a few times, and, throwing up on somebody's lawn trying to step out onto this balcony where we have a nice view of that kind of hotel resort looking structure off in the distance. Has a nice design. I like that architecture. We can continue through this building and kind of work our way through the alleys off here to the side. The Call of Duty Black Ops multiplayer. I mean, I imagine I talked about the multiplayer a bit in my first Black Ops maps video, so I suppose I won't talk too much about it here, but I was quite a fan of this game as multiplayer. I was very into the Call of Duty multiplayers in the stretch from, I guess, Modern Warfare 2 through, I don't know, I guess Black Ops 2. Or no, Modern Warfare 3 was after that, right? So, I guess from the period of Modern Warfare 2 to Modern Warfare 3, no, Modern Warfare 2 came out and there was Black Ops 1, and then Modern Warfare 3, and then Black Ops 2, that's right. So, we have a very famous Cuban creation here. Cuban cigars. Cuba, of course, very famous for its cigars, which are of a very high quality and a very high prestige. There was a thriving Cuban cigar smuggling enterprise during the United States blockade of Cuba. Americans still wanted their Cuban cigars. So, to paraphrase Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park, commerce finds a way. So we have these kind of older style Cuban buildings standing alongside some more modern hotels and such here in the heart of Havana. The failure of the Bay of Pigs invasion and the consequences of it would lead to Cuba and the Soviet Union kind of joining forces a little closer, becoming closer. There is some, I have a little box of cigarettes there. There's an image in my head of games weren't better back then, because I do think some things went downhill over time. But I also find myself asking sometimes, if I were of the age where I was playing, say, Call of Duty, Modern Warfare reboot, 2 or 3 or whatever, at the age that I was playing the first Black Ops, might I have a much fonder opinion of that game? And, I think the answer, of course, is yes. But I certainly have many fond memories of this stretch of Call of Duty games. So we can see out what looks like kind of out over a bay here at some mountains in the distance. An outdoor restaurant, cafe sort of area. It's very beautiful, isn't it? Beautiful tropical Caribbean island. We have some checkerboard tablecloths, some geometric tiling. Stepping outside here, we have quite an active fountain, very splashy. You would not want to sit against the rim there. You would get pretty well soaked through. Barberia, caballeros, y niños. Men and women, right? I think I might have said this in the past, I don't know, but I did 1 year of Spanish, and I was very young at the time, and I just remember crying in the classroom because of how much I was just incapable of grokking a new language. Me llamo, I was about to say my real name, but I'm not going to say it. Me llamo Snow Monkey. And I just remember sitting there, and the teacher was telling us me llamo Snow Monkey. And I was just crying, man. It's funny thinking back on it, but I was not good at languages. Then later on, when I had the choice of languages to choose from, I went with French, and I was still not very good at it, but there were no more tears. I had grown up enough that there was no more crying. So, out here on this little avenue, we have an anti-aircraft gun, a little flak gun, to shoot down flying planes. I do remember I came to enjoy school by the time I reached, I suppose 10 or so. That's quite a beautiful building there, isn't it? But it was a long process, and even at 10, it was a slow transition was a very overactive, well, not overactive. I was just a very active kid, a very excitable kid. I wanted to be moving around constantly. I didn't like to sit still. So, I remember one teacher, actually, that I feel like kind of understood me, was able to work with me in a way that, looking back on it, I really appreciate. She would, once or twice in a class, whatever I needed, I guess, by the day, she would just let me kind of step out into the hall and get my wiggles out, I think we called it. I had to get my wiggles out. And so I would just step out in the hall, walk around a bit, shake it out, crouch down, stretch, do whatever. And I very much appreciate that she was so understanding about that. Good teachers are just wonderful people, aren't they? Alright, well, on this beautiful shot of Havana, let's move on to the map. Grid. A Soviet intelligence station that is apparently, according to the internet, in Pripyat. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to have a sip of water. Make that 3 sips. Alright, I have set it down again. It is a metal water bottle, so not very good for drinking while I am recording ASMR. But I can edit out any clickety clanks. Yeah, I remember we had a quiz on state capitals for the United States of America. We had to learn every state capital, and it was the night before the quiz, and I was just crying in my room, trying to fill out the test quiz, right? Like just a sheet of paper with the states. I was trying to write down all the capitals, Tallahassee, Boston, so on, right? And I could not do it. I could not do it, and I couldn't even really get close. So I was having one of my little breakdowns. Anyway, I'm yapping a lot about my childhood educational experience. Let's move on. This is an RCXD tunnel, by the way. One of the kind of charming little aspects of the Black Ops games that I don't know, it just always stuck in my mind as this funny little thing. RCXD tunnels. And so the RCXD is a little remote-controlled car. RCXD remote-controlled explosive device. And their maps would place these small little tunnels that you could only move through as an RCXD. Ventilation shafts, pathways out of the map, stuff like that. And I just find that delightful. Now, I don't know how often they were ever actually used in game. I very rarely, if ever, used the RCXD tunnels. Also, we have an interesting diagram here about dropping a bomb on a city. I guess, various trajectories or something. I don't quite understand. I think about the RCXD path on Nuketown, for instance, and it's just quite a long ways to drive while your body is sitting there vulnerable. We have some tape racks here. Some heating the air there coming out of the ventilation. Now, of course, it's quite wasteful because they are heating these buildings, but the windows are smashed in and the doors are wide open. So, all I'm saying is if I did that kind of thing when I was a kid, my dad would have beat the shit out of me. Just kidding, my dad never did that. I don't want to smear his name, he never hit us. That's not even funny, I shouldn't joke about that. Sorry. Anyway, we have a calendar there. CCCP calendar. We have a typewriter, a Rolodex, a little Rolodex. I need a Rolodex. I'm not keeping contact information in my phone anymore. I'm just going to have a Rolodex. with the first Modern Warfare game. I can't recall precisely. I think in this game it might be the same thing. It might be based on the perks that you are using. So in this large bunker, we see nothing, nothing. It is pretty much empty. The roof is actually split open. The rebar is bent and broken. And snow is pouring in. This large fence structure door is blocking our path deeper into the bunker. So we can turn around and go in an unobstructed direction. There is a smaller door leaving the bunker on the left. We can also step out through the large exit. Now, over here, this is, I believe, a radar array. A large radar system. I think that's what we're looking at here. Be careful not to touch that barbed wire. Recently I watched the Evil Dead remake, which is a remake of a cult classic zombie trilogy made by Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell. I watched the remake with some friends, which I think is, it's not a very good movie. It's okay, there's course, we had Austin Powers. Austin Powers was like our scapegoat or whatever. He took all of the 60s revivalism and absorbed it into himself to spare our culture at large being consumed by 60s, the 60s returning. We have multiple telephones, which are very close to each other, far too close in my opinion. If you need to have all three of those being used at the same time, or maybe they're functioning as kind of multiple lines or something. They're not meant to be used by different people simultaneously. It's meant to be so that you can keep multiple lines active, perhaps. I don't know. I was not a switchboard operator in 1964, so I really couldn't say. I do not have subject matter expertise. On one of my history videos, where I talk about history, one of my Call of Duty historical videos, I got a comment that was like, "You're such a LARPer." And I was like, what? The guy was like, "You messed up this historical fact." And I was like, oh damn. Oh damn. I made a mistake, so I'm a LARPer. I just thought it was a very weird insult to make. I mean, you could call me stupid, right? That would make more sense to me. But LARPer is a strange insult to use in that case, because it's like you're pretending to be a guy that likes history. Anyway, we have, actually that's where we started over there, isn't it? Yeah. yeah, eventually American prisoners of war were kept in the Hanoi Hilton. I believe, somewhat famously, John McCain was one of them who was an American senator and politician. He ran for president in 2008. The prison was, I think, originally constructed by the French who colonized Vietnam or were colonizers in the area there. I get confused sometimes with the word colonized, right? Because sometimes that is used to mean, you know, the act of, whoa, the depth perception there just tripped me out for a second. Obviously in the game, whenever you get close to a wall or any surface, your gun never actually touches it, despite it being held out in front of you quite far. But walking up to that bar, it felt like I was looking at a Escher painting or something. My brain couldn't quite get a handle on the fact that it looked like the barrel of the sniper was going to hit the bars, but then it did not. That's a nice view there, isn't it? I mean, a nice view of a brutal prison camp is a funny way of putting it. But sometimes colonized is used to mean, you know, setting up communities in uninhabited areas, such as when we talk about, you know, colonizing another planet. But then sometimes it has the much more particular reference to the kind of imperial colony dynamic, the British Empire and its colonies, right, which is of course similar. I mean, it's based on the fact that they're sending British people out to form a colony, but it's very, there's a more particular definition at play with, you know, the interactions with the people who live there anyways. But anyway, that is neither here nor there. The whole point of that was to say, I think this prison was originally a French institution, and the Vietnamese took it over after France dipped out. So we have a gallows here with nooses hanging for, you can imagine what purpose. You can see the moon through that noose loop. There is a trapdoor underfoot here, and a lever over here to release the trapdoor, but also that's just a lot of blood there as well. I'm not sure why there would be so much blood on the gallows, which is, you know, typically a bloodless means guillotine. The guillotine. We can step up here to the platform, and this one does make more sense to me, there being so much blood here. So of course the guillotine, a mechanized way of performing executions, invented during or shortly before the French Revolution, for a more humane means of killing people, I believe. I believe it was essentially a tool of mercy. And then of course it was used to great effect during the French Revolution. Robespierre and his reign of terror, right? The French Revolution is a very fascinating period. I really couldn't accurately summarize much of it because when I learned it much more in depth, it's just very complicated. There are so many factions, and power is sort of being passed back and forth, and there's multiple attempts at governments and so on. It's very complex, very dense with interesting and important information. Here we have a very unpleasant room. This seems to be essentially a torture chamber of sorts. An interrogation room, perhaps, with meat hooks and car batteries. Hooking the car batteries up to your nipples, of course. I don't know why it always has to be the nipples. Am I crazy? Right, I feel like whenever you see people get tortured with a car battery, sorry, I'm laughing about this like it's not like a very fucked up thing, but I'm just thinking in like movies and stuff. I feel like they're always hooking up the clamps to their nipples, which just seems pretty rude and adding insult to injury, I guess. Looks like Sweeney Todd's barber kit there. Do you need, I don't know why it would do the nipples. Anyways, some people might like that. So, walking out of the nipple shocker emporium, we have a courtyard here. A well with a pulley system for a bucket suspended over it. Some stonework. And over here we have a small two-story continues out of the prison, but I'm not sure. I suppose just used for supplies or something like that. So to our right would take us back to the well courtyard, so we will continue onward, following the rails. We have a sort of a lit passage there, but we will continue on this way instead. Through this small empty room, we have another courtyard, relatively unremarkable, except for this little flooded area here. The elevation drops, and it is flooded. It's interesting. The small, or long dirt divider. The infirmary. With white tablecloths and lots of blood again. Lots of blood everywhere on this map. The infirmary, of course, meaning the infirmary, the hospital, the clinic. Oh, this is a cool bit of lighting here. They have the barbed wire shadows casting across this wall here, as there seems to be a little barbed wire cage here to the right, with a lamp in it. I like that lighting. Very nice, very nice. And this pretty much brings us back to where we started, through this collapsed wall. So we could turn to the right here, and the gibbet here to the left and to the right, back to the infirmary and beyond. The gibbet here is the noose, right? The gallows. When I think of gibbet, I think of those